Attention. Hull failure imminent. All personnel abandon ship. Launch in 3, 2, 1.
You know, you would think after 7 or 8 starts, my character would learn how to duck. G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to the deep dark oceans of Subnautica. I've taken a little bit of time away from this game due to the constant updates coming through and a couple of needs to restart. However, I'm going to come back and give this one another crack. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different from my normal Subnautica content because the start of the game has been covered so many times. I'm actually doing this in post-commentary and I'm going to... well, really I'm going to condense about 3 hours of gameplay down into one video just to establish exactly what I'm up to. And also to take a look at what's changed in the last couple of patches.
Survivor. Great job not dying. To assist you in further survival in emergency situations, you have been issued this personal data assistant. The interface visible now will organize your inventory, display currently available construction blueprints, and holds other valuable information. Please take a moment to familiarize yourself with it.
Thank you, computer. Yeah, so first thing that's changed, there has been some adjustments to the PDA. I now have the ability to toggle on and off waypoints, which is something that I didn't have the last time I was playing. This is actually really useful. The problem with Subnautica in the past was always, once you had explored enough of the area and put enough beacons and markers and built enough bases, built a large submarine, built a couple of small submarines, put a couple of prawn suits into the game as well. You had so many markers floating around that your screen was just cluttered constantly and there was no real way to turn them off. The fact that you can turn them off now is actually kind of brilliant. Quality of life changes is something that I am very, very, very fond of. As for that, the starting area hasn't seemed to have been adjusted all that much. As usual, the pod moves around and spawns in different areas of the starting zone. Nothing too surprising there. And this point, I spawned on what appeared to be the southwestern corner of the starting zone, the safe shallows. And I haven't really explored much beyond the safe shallows at this time. Now, there was a couple of things that I have noticed. First things first, you'll notice the gameplay, as it jerks out, is mostly smoother than what it was, but you'll also see there is now some graphical glitches that are popping up as well. I'm not suffering those seemingly random FPS drops anymore. The FPS drop you just saw then was because a new section of the map that I hadn't actually seen before was loaded in. That's pretty normal for Subnautica. It doesn't preload anything, it loads it as you get to it. But you see it all over the place. It looks like cracks in the sand. Subnautica, as far as I've been able to tell, in order to save some system resources, has 2 meshes and 2 texture packs for the game. At long range, you load in a low quality mesh and a low quality set of textures for stuff that's in the distance, and when stuff gets close to you, it updates to a higher quality mesh and a higher quality set of textures. This is actually pretty normal for most games. Now the problem I think I'm seeing with the little cracks showing up on the terrain, and you can see another one of them there and it'll disappear in just a second, there it goes, and you see the texture quality actually updates all around. I think what's actually happening here is the game is forgetting to load the high detailed mesh and the high quality textures that go with it as you're approaching the area. So I'm actually swimming into the terrain that I shouldn't be able to see, that should be rendering at about 100 meters away, where you wouldn't notice those little cracks in the terrain due to the distance involved, and they would blend in and disappear to the background. See, there's another big one just there. Now, this problem has sort of always existed within Subnautica, but I have noticed... stupid exploding fish. I have noticed in this patch coming back into the game that it seems to be a lot more common than it once was. It used to happen every now and again, now it seems to happen almost everywhere you go. Although having gone into the kelp forests, it is more noticeable in the safe shallows, but that could be due to the colour palette and the lack of, I suppose, foliage, the coral and the underwater plant life actually cloaking it. that exists within the kelp forest, for example. Anyways, I mentioned explosions a second ago, so let's go watch that.
To supercritical state in T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
That really never gets old. I love that animation. So, having already filled the escape pod up with supplies, it was time to start establishing my first base. Now, I'm not going to be spending a huge amount of time building bases in this one, at least not initially. My goal with this particular playthrough is to get back down to where I was in the last one. Back to the Lost River biome so I can get back to exploring the areas in the game that I haven't actually seen yet. That being said, I do need to build at least some bases as I can't carry all the supplies myself and I need a place to start storing stuff, which is exactly why I'm building this base in the safe shallows. Now, I don't have access to the multi-purpose room yet. I haven't travelled to the island. I'm actually going to do that in the next video and pick that up, so for the moment it's just going to be platforms and corridors, just for a beginning point. Now, speaking of different games, I know a few people actually thought I was going to completely replace Subnautica with Helion. That is not the case, and was never going to be. I actually want to put more Helion up on the channel. My plan was to do Helion and Subnautica when I return to it. The main reason you haven't seen more Helion on the channel at the moment, however, is because the game is in such an early development state at this point. A lot of the patches they're releasing for it, and they're releasing between 1 and 3 patches a week at this point on the game, and a lot of them are actually breaking the servers. So what you need to do to fix that is obviously update your server to the latest patch and then reset your entire server, and that means deleting all the save games and returning everyone else back to a clean, fresh start server. At this point I've managed to dock together my space station about 9 times and then logged out only to come back a day or two later and gone, okay, now I'm going to make a video, and it's all been reset and I've got to start the entire process again. So it's just what goes on in the early access. There will be more Helion coming to the channel when I can get a good run on it to get some recordings. And this was interesting, the ability to scan myself. I haven't seen this before.
Vital signs normal. Detecting trace amounts of foreign bacteria. Continuing to monitor.
I assume that's going to be something to do with a virus or the plague that's going to be in the water. I haven't come across any of that yet, but I assume you'll have to check your own status using your scanner. Anyways, as I said, there will be more coming when I get a good run on it, and I will get more Helion up on the channel, definitely, once that very early access period passes and the patches stabilize a little bit more and they start breaking the game less, or breaking the saves and the server state less as they're introduced. That's really the only reason there hasn't been a hell of a lot more of that already. But anyways, with that little update on Helion done, back to Subnautica, and this base is going to be a pretty basic one. For the moment, it's just going to consist of 3 solar panels down on the base platform next to the tunnel, and it's only going to have 1 single corridor and a bend on it. Nothing too flash. The end goal for the total size of this base is just going to be 2 multi-purpose rooms, and possibly 1 more tunnel attachment leading out to a second airlock. It doesn't have to be particularly big. All this place is really for, I want 1 multi-purpose room that I can fill up with storage containers, 1 that I can put in a water purifier if I manage to find one. If not, the water purifier can go in at the next base, and that's really all it's going to be. At this point, I don't quite have access to the bioreactor yet, but I get access to the bioreactor not long after finishing off this base. Not going to bother building one here. I'm going to save that for a little bit deeper down where it's actually needed. For the moment, the sunlight will be enough. It's really just a storage base more than anything else, and it's been built on the edge of a deeper section of water, so that when I get access to a submarine like the Cyclops, I can start pulling down that entire base to its base resources, put them in the Cyclops and just sail away. At that point, I won't have to come back to the safe shallows. So as normal, after establishing a base of operations, spent a little bit wider and managed to get out as far as the red grass plains, or at least the very edges of them, to do a little bit of scanning for various parts that I needed in order to put together my next 2 goals. Obviously, if I want to explore around, I'm going to need a sea glide, and if I want to start travelling some serious distance, I'm going to need a Seamoth. So these are the parts that I'm after here. So the Sea Glide itself was fairly easy to get all the parts for. Most of the plans and the details are kept inside of the safe shallows, and that gave me a little bit more mobility. An interesting thing, the last time I used the Sea Glide, I found it to be, well, less useful than it could have been. The major problem was the rate of power consumption. The thing chewed through batteries insanely quickly, requiring me to constantly carry spares, even for the shortest of trips. However, this battery actually lasts me quite some time. I did a fairly large and wide area's worth of exploring straight away, and I never got the battery below about 40%, and I must have gone at least 8 to 10 Ks on the Sea Glide. This is a much better power consumption and makes the thing much more useful. It was actually so bad that I only sort of built it more as a support to go with the Seamoth, because it carried both a light and gave me slightly higher mobility. But in most situations I would take the Seamoth. And there we go, that's the bioreactor uncovered. So with the Sea Glide complete, a base established that has enough storage to hold the resources, the bioreactor discovered and those resources gathered, it's time for the last and probably most important part of the early game of Subnautica, which is where I'm going to finish up today. Building the Seamoth. Now the reason why I'm playing up to this point is after this I'm going to go back to my normal format, and that is because it looks like the infection update has added a lot of storyline elements. There aren't a lot of story elements within the safe shallows, the early starting biome. However, once I start extending outside of that, which the Seamoth will give me access to the ability to do, at that point I'm going to start encountering these elements. And this time, where in previous playthroughs I've been largely ignoring the storyline, this next time I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to it and actually trying to build the storyline. So I'm going to be reading through the PDAs when I discover them to you guys and so on, because I want to establish what the hell is actually going on in this world. As I said in previous playthroughs, I've been avoiding it because not all of the elements were in, but it seems like there should be enough now to, well, if not get the complete story of Subnautica, at least enough to establish everything that's going on, without having to cheat or hack the game in order to bring up parts that aren't in it. So, after one last run out to the kelp forest for supplies, we finally have the vehicle bay constructed. At this point, I have all of the materials on board for the Seamoth. It didn't actually take a whole lot of time to actually gather them up this time. The resource spawns actually seem to be rather plentiful, and it's a matter of finding the right point to click on in order to be able to get up and build vehicles, and we send out our drones to start construction. And voila, there we go, we have our submarine. So we're just going to pack this up, and we'll go stick this inside the base into our locker, and that is really all we need to do at this point. We have, actually, just thinking about it, I don't have a spare power cell built at this point. I'm not entirely sure how much power the Seamoth is going to consume, so I'm probably going to have to put together a spare second, maybe a third power cell, just in case. Yeah, everything seems to be working as normal on this one, so we'll park this one next to the base, and this is where we will call the video here. So, our next stop will be the hidden island and the PDAs and base components that are actually there. And once we've managed to get that, I can expand out the base as much as is needed to start looking into wider exploration to get our hands on the Cyclops. As soon as the Cyclops is constructed, we can get back to the Lost River. Anyways, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're happy to see Subnautica back. Until next time, remember to click that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you all in the depths.